Hello, hello, hello. This is Irina Strunina and our podcast, Diabetically Speaking with Smart Move 360. And I just wanted to remind what just happened in the last month. Last month, we launched that podcast. We had 3 full episodes. We were talking about the change. We were talking about the importance of change. And we had the change agent, Monica Henderson, speaking with us. We had Jelena Shaw, the doctor, speaking with us. We had 2 of our moderators for our Diabetes 101 for Beginners group speaking about their experiences, their life with diagnosis, how they manage it, successfully manage it. And today, I wanted to bring up a topic that lately I hear more and more often, and this is how to control the stress, how to control your emotions. A lot of people are so overwhelmed with their diagnosis that they cannot find a way to help themselves in a more effective manner, how to handle this, how they could go past that stage when they're really shocked and numb. So today we have a very special guest to help us in this conversation. We have serenity expert Denise Belisle. She is certified functional medicine health coach, and she is Reiki Master, and she has certification in health coaching training. So welcome, Denise, to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Irina. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. So we are going to talk today about how people who were recently diagnosed, who just got that dreading phone call or message from doctor's office saying that your blood work show that you have diabetes. Very often people are not given any instructions. They left with this information without really reassuring what to do, how to behave, what to do, what changes to be made. And they could start making changes in terms like in their diet. They could even go to gym and start doing exercises, but there is no training whatsoever in
Mm.
terms of how to handle their stress. So what will you say, how and why, not how, why should we control the stress? Why people should control their stress, how it's related to the diabetes, why it's important.
hmm Well, stress in its own is a killer. Like stress is, and that's why I specialize in stress. Because when I was doing my functional medicine course, I was studying all the system, the endocrine system, the hormonal system, et cetera, et cetera. And and then, but when I realized is what's that the base of these imbalance in their system, and then I was like, stress. Stress is the number one killer in North America. Stress will weaken your immune system. Stress will put your body into unbalance that will create that you'll be more prone to react, to get diabetes and heart attack and all of that. So, and then because it's all a cumulative effect, right? You're stressed, you'll eat more, you gain weight, you do less exercise, you develop diabetes. Like it's a compound effect. It's not just you're stressed, you'll have diabetes, but it's a compound effect. So when you succeed to eliminating your stress, when you succeed to be at peace with yourself, then a lot of time you will eliminate emotional eating. You will want to exercise because it makes you feel happy and joyful, and you've got a burst of energy once you do that. And you will eliminate the extra weight that you don't need because you're comfortable in your own skin and you don't need the protection. Often weight is there to protect us emotionally. So all of these things create that. Stress is definitely a big proponent of people developing diabetes.
All right, thank you, Denise. Yeah,
Mm.
I when I am working with people and when I am speaking with people, I always notice that those who made peace with their diagnosis, who agreed, yes, I have it, accepted it,
Hmm. Yeah.
they don't panic about it anymore. They realize that there are ways, it's not the end of life. This is not a sentence. This is just a diagnosis. Yes, it's not an easy to swallow, but people live with this diagnosis for long, long, long years, and they manage it if they manage it, and they could actually get much better results in their life if they made peace with this and learn how to live with that. Good. So we do need to control our emotions to lower down our stress. So,
Hmm.
what will be your advice for newly diagnosed people, for their families, for their support people, how they could control their emotions? What would be the ways to do that?
I think the best thing to do initially is not to panic. As you mentioned, this is not a life sentence. And even it's off topic, but even if you get diagnosed with cancer, even if your doctor tell you you have so many months to live, well, it's never a death sentence. Don't let your doctor give you any idea that whatever diagnosis they give you, it's the end of all. There's lots of things you can do in order to not panic, and there's so many specialists now, especially like people like you that know the step of what to do when you're diagnosed with diabetes, the things that you need to change. There are lifestyle changes that will have to occur if you want to first feel better, reduce your risk of being
Complications.
more sick with the diabetes, because there's different level, right? People can get really sick if they're not managing their diabetes properly. But if you manage it initially and just start to do the things that needs to be done, change your diet, eliminate sugar, do more exercise. But this is the anybody's lifestyle, right? These are things that everybody should be doing no matter what. But when you're now the bell has rang, ding, 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 diabetes is here with us, then you say, oh my goodness, I have to do these things that are just the thing that everybody should be doing. But just one thing at a time. Don't try to change your whole lifestyle, because when you start to you try to do that, then it's too overwhelming. So perhaps is monitoring your food, just being aware of what you eat. The first thing, because people it's like, I don't eat that bad, but then when you start to write it down and take notes of all the things you eat in a day, you're like, oh yeah, yeah, I guess so. you know, I guess that was not really good. You have a pop here and you don't think about it. Just I'm thirsty. I'll grab a pop from the store, or anything that can be cumulative at the end of the day can make a difference. And as you mentioned, like I when we had our pre podcast talk, you were mentioning that of people that with type 2 diabetes that are able to reverse it and be able to get off the insulin. They always have to check themselves because they are predetermined to be affected by not having enough insulin. But it's definitely a lifetime sentence. Once you do all the things you need to do, if you eliminate weight, if you eat the right diet, then you will be able to live a lifestyle just like everybody else. You'll be healthier, you'll be happier because you'll be lighter, and you'll be able to play with your grandkid forever.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, those stories actually I've heard multiple times.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned, our admins, they're a great example how they managed it. And everybody is experiencing the stressful days.
Mhm.
Everybody could have once in a while some days where the stress is not that easy to
Mhm.
control, where the emotions taking over. So we do need to learn the techniques. What do I do? What do I do if that suddenly covered me and I cannot
Mhm.
breathe? What will you say people should do if that happens?
Yeah, good question. When you feel like the way I see stress, And people really caught on when I give that example. Imagine that a stressful event is like a hot plate on the stove, right? Like the iron in the stove. And it's when it's that's the stress, but then you go and you get close to it in real life, you say, oh, that's hot. So you're not staying there because you are aware that, if you leave your hand on a hot plate, it will burn and it will hurt. And the longer you leave your hand on the hot plate, the longer it will take to heal. So now reverse that into stress. You have a stressful situation. It's okay to how, the how can take a minute to 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes of being shocked by that negative event or by that stressful event. But the longer you stay in that stressful event, the longer it will take for you to come back from it. So it's more like a big curve. The higher the curve, the more effect it will have on you. If you just have a little bump, that 90 second, then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm better. So how to do that, how not to stay there, is first of all, decide that you're going to become aware of your emotion. So when you have that stress coming into your life, then developing a habit, perhaps just to start count to 90, right? That will be your 90 second, and say, because you have to disconnect the link between you being stressful and the internal turmoil, and take a few deep breaths while you're counting to 90. Take maybe 5 breaths, and if you have five holding, 5 releasing, you do that like 5 times. That will help you just to take yourself away from that stressful situation, and it will give you time to take your hand off the hot plate and now realize, okay, I'm a little bit burned because I stayed there a bit too long perhaps. And that will allow you to really feel the fact that, okay, next time I won't stay that long into that emotion. If you feel that you cannot control the situation, you can still do a few deep breaths and work towards not getting too hyped up with that event, whatever that is. I call that action reaction. It's like something happened and you explode. It's just, you can't help it. It's like pressing a button and poof. But the idea is to create that buffer between the action and the reaction. And that would be like that initially, that 90 second that you count yourself, you let yourself distance yourself from it. And eventually that will become easier and easier. That's a method of, stress management. And that will be a way for you to really help yourself to release those stress. And there's tons, like there's lots of apps online that you can download on your phone, that you can have like a relaxation exercise or stress management exercise. And I have some download too to release stress, that if people are interested, they could ask for it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for holding the line. My internet was suddenly leaving me, so I'm
No
glad
problem. I have
you
lots to say.
yes, I'm glad that you was able to continue the conversation. Yes, I agree, and this is something that I wanted to to pick your brain on. This is something that I wanted to discuss in a little bit more details. What kinds of techniques you may suggest? So you said the breathing exercise
Mhm.
is very helpful. Uh, what else? I personally know that for me, very often it's helpful if I just put my sneakers on and will go for a walk.
Yeah.
I don't even need the music to listen, podcast to listen. I just need to keep moving. And
Yeah.
when I move, just this motion of putting one foot in front of another helps me to kind of stabilize the breathing, stabilize the way how I start thinking,
Mhm.
noticing what is happening, because sometimes it's so blinding that the events that you may be scared of, your thoughts that you picture yourself, the not very pretty future, it may be very scary. And what
Mhm.
other techniques you can suggest people to use? Because as I mentioned in the very beginning, this diagnosis people know so many stories how it can go, how it could progress, forgetting about the point that if it is not properly managed.
Yes.
So the
So
this part kind of being overlooked. They immediately
assume the worst. They assume they'll go blind. They assume they lose a
exactly,
limb. They assume
exactly.
that,
But the idea is
yeah.
that we are working on managing the diagnosis.
Yes.
And so, what are the techniques that you could suggest people to try? I'm not saying we are all different, but for somebody,
Mm-hmm.
breathing works, for somebody, walking works. What
Yeah.
else people can try?
Well, it's all about awareness. But the main thing is, and all of that, going for a walk, taking some breathing, is when we are stressed, when we have anxiety, like you're thinking people see themselves already, like losing limb or being blind or whatever, like the worst case scenario. But when you're there, you're in the future. You're not here right now. You're not in the present. So then your mind is going crazy about, oh, what if this or what if that? Oh, I've heard a story of someone doing this and oh my goodness, they died and they did this and that. And then you have all these stories coming back in your mind and you create a new one. One thing I would say is just come back to right now. Like bring yourself back, stop the chattering and the walk in the nature or outside, even in traffic. Then you look at the cars, you look at just being outside, seeing different scenery to do the breathing. Some people would just want to sit and like there's a void meditation, which means that you work on quieting your mind by imagining your thoughts are like a cloud, and when you have a thought, you say, oh, just let go. And then you let the thought go away. And then you just keep focusing on your breathing or on nothing, or just a part of your focus on the tip of your nose, focus on your chin. Like these are very powerful exercise to really slow you down and take your mind to right here, right now. Because whenever we have anxiety attack, it's because we're thinking of something in the future that is scaring us and that we think that it's going to be really horrible. And then maybe people that have had bad experience and now you're living in the past, instead of and then the future, the past, like all of these. When you're not present, then you will experience stress. When you're right here right now, it's really hard to be stressed because you live the present moment. Right here, I'm good, because whatever happened 5 minutes ago, I can't change it. And what happened in the future, I'm not there yet. So I may as well just enjoy right now, like be calm right here. And that's how people are able to handle stress and living presently, to be, I'm here. Okay. Right now I'm okay. Like I'm not dying. I'm not, I'm not at that stage, but become aware of the step you need to take, and just move one step at a time. Just do one thing. Just, as I mentioned earlier, take your list of all the things you could do to get better, and start with one, and then add a second, and then add a third. And maybe it's just walking. Maybe it's too hard for you to change your diet. Go for a walk around the block. I have a family member that has diabetes and other illness, and because of his weight and all that, it was really hard to go for walks. He could barely, walk in his own home. And then his partner just say, hey, let's just walk out. You can walk to your car, so let's just walk in the street, maybe walk to two houses, and then come back. And then they started with that. They would do that every day. And then they would go 3 houses, 4 houses, 5 houses, 6 houses, right? And then they would go around the block. And then now they can go for a walk for half an hour. So start with tiny steps, and then it will increase, because you will have more confidence and you will have more stamina and you will feel better about yourself, and it will be easier to make the other steps.
Thank you. My last question for today was, how can we start? How can we start implementing those stress techniques? And you already started answering this, giving those suggestions, those ideas, and I appreciate that, because yes, being present is so important. To
Mm-hmm.
me, it's not related to diabetes. it's related to life in general, because I think this is something that we all need to remember, if you have diagnosis or not, or maybe
Mhm.
your family member has it, or your close friend has it. The This is so important. I totally agree with you, to be in the in the present. And I like to quote this famous Scarlett O'Hara. Remember Gone with the Wind?
Yeah.
When she was very stressed, she lived in a total stress, especially during those situations. And she would say, I'm not going to think about it right now. I will think about it tomorrow, because if I think about it right now, I will go nuts. I will go crazy. So
Mhm.
when I find myself in these situations like you described, this is exactly what I'm trying to bring myself to
Yeah.
right now.
Defer it. Defer
What
it, you
I
know?
can do at this moment, I
Yeah.
can breathe. I
Yeah.
can breathe. I can stabilize my breathing.
Yeah.
It may take special technique, like you said, four
Yeah.
counts up, hold it, breathe out, hold it, all this, but it may be something else, some other techniques.
Mhm.
But that's
That
what
made
I
me
can
think.
do.
You
Yeah,
said that, and that reminded me of a story about releasing stress. Is the man goes to work, and then he has a lot of stress at work, and he has lots of problem, and he has a lot of things to take care of because he's the boss, and there's everybody's coming to him to resolve the problems, and at work he's super busy, but when he's at home he doesn't want to bring that stress in. So when he goes towards his home and he gets to his house, there's a tree right there at the entrance, and what he does is he touches the trees and he says, okay, I'm putting all my problem in here, and I'll grab them in tomorrow when I leave. But right now, I'm putting those problem into that trees, hold them out for me. And then he goes in the house and he's released, like he's happy, he doesn't think about his problem, have his life. But when he leaves the next day, do you think he touched the trees and grabbed these problem again? They're gone, right? The wind blew them away, and the problem are not holding him back. And I thought it's a really beautiful story of, or just learn to, and what you just said, I'll do it tomorrow, right? I'll deal with these problems that I think are unsurmountable. I'll deal with them tomorrow. Right now, I just want to be happy. I just want to um, to live the life that I need to live. And take, I keep mentioning that. That's why my business is called In Motion Coaching. It's just like baby step. You just have to be in motion and take baby step on all area of your life in order to make changes. Maybe it's stop eating sugar until, like don't eat sugar from noon until, the next morning. Let's say you can't stop eating sugar, right? Like from noon to the next day, so you can have sugar in the morning, because at night it keeps you awake and you don't sleep as well. So if you can do that initially, then you say, well, if I can not have sugar for a week or two from noon to 9, for example, well, I probably don't need to have sugar, right? Like you come to a realization that by putting yourself little challenge and little game, play game with yourself, and put your calendar. I did that last year, and I had, like, those little calendar you get in the mail from realtor or whatever. And I say, hey, thank you. And then I would take it, and every day I wanted to do an exercise or a walk, and every day I put an X, right? I would put an X on the calendar. I say, yes, I've done it today. The next day I put an X. The third day I put an X. So once you have one or two lines in your calendar, you're like, wow, I don't want to break the streak, you know?
yeah,
So you
yeah.
go and say, okay, if I need to walk, I'll go just 15 minutes out and I'll be back. I'll put my X on. And that's the same thing with anything. If you put yourself little game, little challenge, and once you do that, then it's like, and the thing is, if you do break the streak, that's okay. The next day you put an X, because it's okay. You missed one. You're human. Get back. The next day you put an X, and the next day you put an X, and you just keep going, and forgive yourself for the time that you will skip and you won't do what you need to do, but just keep moving.
Absolutely. Yeah, keep moving. Anybody who listened to my morning talks, they've heard that before. Keep moving, whatever is happening.
Yeah.
And I read very often in our group, Diabetes 101 for Beginners, people saying, I'm freaking out. I just did something real bad And apparently what they did, they had two cookies.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it's not that good, not that helpful, but at the same time, it will not kill you either.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
had a
Just get
stress,
back on the wagon, you know?
you had a stressful situation
Yeah.
somehow, maybe by accident. Those cookies just fell into your open mouth. You didn't notice how they approaching it. Things happens.
Yeah.
What our doctor Jelena suggested when she was on the show, she said, if that happens, enjoy it. Enjoy
Exactly.
it, because tomorrow you will go back to your regular schedule
Mm-hmm.
and you will not have it, but you have this time when you enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
what I hear from many people, what they say, once they stayed away for a little while from, say, something sweet, from desserts, from the ice
Yeah.
cream, their body cleaned up itself,
Yeah.
and the next time they have it, they don't need those big amounts because it tastes too sweet,
Exactly.
overwhelmingly sweet, plus this idea, knowledge that you should not be eating it anyways. So
Mm-hmm.
that together helps them actually to next day start from scratch. What happened, that happened. It happened in
Can't
in
change
the
it.
past. You cannot change it. But today, the new day, the new start, you could do that. I think I like our conversation. I like talking about this. Denise,
Yes.
you are serenity expert.
Yes.
What can you help with? Well, not what, how people who may be experiencing stress right now, may be experiencing anxiety attack, how they can connect with you? Can they ask you for some ideas? Can they connect with you somehow?
Yeah, of course. There's a, I share a link earlier, and here it is Talk with Denise with tiny.cc/talk with Denise. And I would be happy to have a 45-minute consultation with you, see how I can support you, in which way I can help you to find new ways for your condition, meaning where you're at this moment, and how you can move forward into getting rid of that nasty stress, because it's really is not helping you. And and there's so much that can be done just by, I see that as post-it, right? Stress is layers of post-it that we have, and we just learn to remove those post-it, and eventually life will look so much better, because our vision is blocked by how we have been conditioned and the things we've been telling ourselves. So we can have fun for 45 minutes and just talk about all that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I wanted to also remind everyone that this is our podcast, Diabetically Speaking with Smart Move 360. We are going live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But in addition to it, after a day or two, you can find recordings of this podcast pretty much on every podcast platform. At least I know for sure Spotify has it. I have downloaded it to my phone, and sometimes I just like to go back and listen to stories and recommendations that our guests are giving to our listeners. And the another very important thing I wanted to remind everyone that on the 25th of March, it will be Saturday, our Smart Move 360, Diabetes 101 for beginners, and many people, including Denise, including other speakers who participate in our podcast, we will host the Diabetic Healthcare Expo, and we'll be talking about life, about managing stress, about exercises, about cooking, about connections, about different ways to manage your disease. We will have doctors, we will have nutritionists, we will have experts of all walks of life, including the social workers. Join us there. And until then, please listen to our podcast, share this information with people you know, and let's meet next Thursday. Have a great day, the rest of the week, and